Good morning. Today is Tuesday, April 16th at 8:37 a.m. I call this meeting to order. It's a work session of the Election Commission. And I will turn it over to Jamie.
Oop, wrong button. Thank you. So today right now we're doing the work session where I'm going to be showing you all of the ballots that have been preliminarily rejected by the staff. And then when we meet in the official meeting at 11:30, we'll be making motions to finally reject these ballots. If you so choose, you can also order us to count ballots when we get to the meeting itself. And the reason for the work session is to let you look at all of these ballots now and have discussions. And then the staff is going to the post office to get mail where there could be ballots that could be counted and also cure letters in the mail. And so we will process those while we're in this work session, and then it is likely that there will be fewer ballots to actually reject, assuming we get a couple cures between now and then. So I'm going to start out first with duplicate ballots voted, and we have 8 of these, and so we have a little attachment next to each one of them, which is the first ballot that arrived, and a little note on each one that explains when the first ballot arrived and that it was considered good and went through and was counted. And so these are rejected because they are duplicates. And again, there's 8.
Could I just ask a question? How does somebody get a duplicate ballot? Do they come to the election office and request it?
They could have called and asked for a replacement ballot. I think most of these went to a vote center after voting their ballot that came to their house.
So, do you have any evidence that people were trying to vote twice in any of these cases? Or any indication?
I don't have any indication at this point. When people get their letters at the end of the election that say that one of their ballots was, or that their ballot was rejected, we've occasionally heard that they were testing the system.
No comment.
Having said that, Pete, I think there were some referrals to prosecution, if not last year and the year before.
I was part of,
Yeah.
arguing for referrals before, which is why I asked the question.
Right, the first one that comes through checks them off in the system as having voted, and so because the same barcode comes back through the second time, the sorter rejects it or outsorts it into a no scheme or something bin because it knows that that barcode has already been utilized.
And from your running tests, are you quite confident that your system, I mean, this is all that's through there, your system's good enough to catch everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
to get a little bit nerdy, we use the 3 of 9 barcode system, which is the lines. There is a more sensitive code system, which is called, I think it's called 2D. And it's just a tiny little square. And if we were to be worried that our system wasn't catching them, we could go to that finer 2D data matrix. It's been a while since I've looked at the name. Do you know off the top of your head how many text to cares we had?
No. Well, I think it's over 200.
I didn't get to see.
Oh, no, I don't.
Names.
Oh, because you're putting them in the postmarked too late?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna get things straight in my head. When you have a challenge like this, the signatures absolutely do not match. How do you deal with this?
If the commission wanted to make a motion at the meeting to direct me to turn it over to the municipal prosecutor's office, I could do that.
And could you explain why this one has this ticket, just for my purposes?
This void sticker, it's what the system kicked out, and so it's just a note that was left.
Okay, thank you.
So the next one is no ballot was received in the envelope when we got the ballot open, or the envelope opened, and we have 5 of those, and we did have more. As a matter of fact, yesterday I pulled 2 out because there was, well, I didn't pull 2 out of this one, I pulled 2 out of the duplicate ballot voted because someone had sent an empty ballot envelope, and then we called them, they got a cure letter and said, go to a vote center and try again, essentially, and get your ballot in the envelope this time. And so we have 5.
Did you send a cure letter to all of them?
When, as long as there's still time allowed. If it comes in right close to the second, then we call them if we can get a hold of them. But yeah, they get cure letters so that they can go vote again.
Time allowed is up until midnight election day,
8 p.m. election day.
8 p.m. election day.
I was distracted by other important business down here when you said what these are. What are these 5?
Oh, these are empty envelopes.
Oh,
Their
okay.
envelope was received and they were empty.
Lauren, you could move to count them anyway, but I don't think you
Over here.
It's interesting to put all the trouble into it. Ballot. Notice later. It's hanging around the house.
So the next set is the ballot was returned without a return envelope, and we were unable to identify the voter. So it's just the ballot that is dropped into a drop box or occasionally they're brought into a vote center and dropped in a box before we can catch them. If they have signed the secrecy sleeve or the ballot itself, as long as we can read the name, we will make them an envelope and put it through. So there's 33 of these.
So do you have any, if it's at a vote center, do you have a process of elimination that can make a voter's vote valid?
So the one you'll see the note on is from the chair of the vote center, and they set up on the Friday before. So they start on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. And they set up their vote center before, and somebody had gotten into Chambers somehow over the weekend and deposited it in the box before we were even open. And so no, there was no way to determine that at that point.
So Jamie, through the chair, if you got something like this where you've got the sleeve, all right, how did you get the ballot without the name? So,
That's how it was dropped off. It was in the sleeve, but not the envelope. And it was dropped off.
so just as a comment on this, in a tight election, somebody might challenge that to see if they would be ballot voted. And the argument could be made that since the ballot was out there, they went to a legitimate person and so forth. But on the other hand, the signature is our guard against somebody else voting somebody else's ballot. Got it. Just a quick glance, the first 10 of them, they appeared not to be for any one particular candidate. You know.
Questions, Lisa. This little box
The
that
barcode?
doesn't have any,
No, it doesn't.
ID information.
So that is the 2D data matrix barcode that I was talking about. It is a 2D data matrix barcode, and it is it's what the printer prints, and the ballot has the same barcode, the secrecy sleeve has that, and the return envelope and the outer envelope, and that's how the printer assembles everything and makes sure that the right ballot goes to the right voter. So that's all that's indicated in that barcode.
So no identifying information or
It
address?
doesn't have identifying information, only
Just
only
matching
this ballot is for this
election.
district, for this election. And, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question. When I saw this one, does your system have the ability to scan a signature and tell you who that person is? I mean, I guess I'd call it the reverse way of looking at it.
Right, no, we don't.
Okay.
230 guys.
There's a tool for that now.
Jamie, on this type of situation, is this ongoing, the last couple of elections?
Yes.
I've never heard anything education-wise to try to teach the public that you have to include the envelope. Can we possibly focus on that in the future?
We could state that when we get interviewed by the news, but we do on the instructions, on the public notices that we put out, on the instructions that come in the ballot itself, it does say to put the ballot in the secrecy sleeve and then put the secrecy sleeve inside the envelope and sign the envelope. So we do have some education, we just don't usually say it on, like when the news comes and interviews us, so we could say that on the news.
If I may, this is William. I'm the acting elections administrator. So I did a lot of the news interviews this year, and I did mention that on the news. We also, opposed to years previous, made a lot of educational videos where I also talked about that as well.
So I lied. I didn't do the news this year.
How about the sign on the box itself?
Just gonna ask about that.
Will you count and make sure that's 32?
Jamie, is the sign on the box itself, like I could go out there and look at the one out there, does it say don't deposit without your envelope?
No. The signs on the boxes.
Yeah.
No. I don't think there is a sign on the box.
That might be a good change.
Sure.
I mean, 35 of these things in a close election could be a difference.
Sure.
Be a change to make even before the runoff.
Your vote will not count.
Yeah.
Will you write that note down?
There's 33 there.
So the next one is the ballot was returned with the voter failed to provide identifying information. And there are 12 of these, and so there are a few people who registered to vote online without ever showing anybody an ID, or they didn't include an ID when they were registering online. And so you probably remember in poll-based elections, the precinct register will say ID required. And so that's a condition code in the voter registration database. And so they get a separate set of instructions when they're mailed to their home that says a big bold red ID required. You must provide a photocopy of your ID when you mail this back. And so we have some that did not provide those. We have a few who we started using text to hear this year. Sorry, my brain was stuck on ballot tracks. We started using text to hear, where they could text a photo of their ID along with, if there was a no-sig match. And so we have a few of those where they said, yes, they returned their ballot, but then they didn't provide their ID, or we couldn't read it. And then we have one special needs where they didn't provide their identifier, where they must provide one of the following. And there are 12 of these.
So this is my neighbor, and she just didn't. She's a common person. So what's the problem?
I think that they couldn't. So looking at what she provided as her ID, we couldn't read it. It wasn't clear enough to read that that's her name. And obviously, we don't know what anybody looks like. There's a picture there.
Yeah, no, that's her. So how, did she mail this in or make a photocopy of it, or?
So that's the text here. They text the word Anchorage to 28683, and then it sends them back a link, and they click the link, and then it asks the question, did you vote in this election? And so then they check yes or no. And then the next step is sign here, and then that populates on that little signature line on the other side, which we don't look at for signature verification purposes because it's on a phone and electronic. And then the next step is to take a photo of their ID. And so then once they hit submit, it sends all of that information to a secure FTP site that we access every day and print them out. So that is what we got from from that voter.
So it's the quality of the picture.
I'm sorry?
It's the quality of the picture that came through. This is the challenge.
Yes, that's
So-
our issue with it.
Did you call her after that?
I do not know if we call her.
Okay, well, I mean, the one thing I will say is, while the name on the passport is hard to read, the signature is not, and it matches.
Right.
The picture, I personally know this person, so I would have accepted the ID if I were an election official, whether or not I am now. But what bothers me is that this person was curing. This person went through the process and thought that she had cured and got no notice that the picture didn't work. Is that correct?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I didn't ask that question yesterday.
If she were to come in today and show her ID, would that be countable?
If this commission is satisfied with it, that her signature matches, and you order us to count it, we can count it.
And I don't want to favor somebody who I happen to know over those I don't, or any others like that have that circumstance where you've had a cure and
So when we ask for cure letters, we're asking them to provide 2 identifiers.
which
like-
she did.
Like the state does. And at that point, we're not necessarily looking at the signature. And so, since this is a new system this year, I don't know from the staff if they were looking at the signature. I can just tell you from that photo that they were unable to read the identifying information, which is what we've often looked to, or what we always look to, and we don't know who the voter is, and so the photo didn't help us at all.
Well, okay, so on this one, the signature didn't match. Or said, all right, I mean, this appears to be a properly executed envelope, right? It says, it has her signature. It says email or phone number is optional, only if there's an issue with your signature. And then there's a thing on it that says commission no ID. Why did she need an ID if her signature matched?
Because she's never provided identification
Got
to the
it,
state.
got it, okay. All right, so we're mixing 2 different kinds of things here, right? In this.
The topic is voter failed to provide identifying information. That is the
Okay,
system of ballots.
so let me ask this another way. How many of these are people who signed up to vote electronically and never produced an ID to get them properly on the voting list versus, say, Lori's case where the photo didn't work and she had no idea that the photo didn't work?
I don't know the answer to that unless I can read the notes on them.
Yeah,
I didn't separate them out like that because the topic was,
well, maybe I should put it this way, Jamie, in a world with just a pure mail-in election, we have always said that at the very beginning of the system, when you register, you got to show an ID to somebody. So that ought to be almost an automatic question ballot, no matter what, even if they're registered, if they haven't shown an ID, that's that. But for something like this other thing where our mechanics didn't work, and that particular person, she's a mother of a GI, her son's already shooting team.
your phone right now.
Anyway, it just, I know her to be a meticulous person, and she thought she was doing everything right. Whereas if you sign up online and don't show an ID when you're told that's what you need to do, then that's not doing everything right.
So what I would say is I understand, and I mentioned that this is a new system, and we need to understand your tolerance for what to accept and what not to accept, and how to change our policies and procedures in order to make this system work. So if you would like to make a recommendation to us to reach out to people when their text secure didn't work, we can certainly do that. We have not done that in the past with peers if they didn't do the instructions correctly.
To the best extent that person did do the instructions correctly, we just didn't know why she has no idea that the photo didn't come through well. I mean, it was really weird where you could see the object on the desk beautifully, but for whatever reason, watermarks on the passport or whatever, it did not digitize well, and there was no feedback. Whereas if I had come up with a mangled ID at the elections office, you might say, well, I can't read your name. Could you have another ID or something like that? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, okay. Nobody's accusing anybody of malfeasance. It's just kind of a slip in the system. So, okay.
Go ahead.
Question. Oh, yeah. I wondered how big of a subgroup is this, the electronic voting, in terms of if you were, the commission asked you to say, for this one subgroup, after an attempted cure, that you might reach out for them. So this is a subgroup, right? It's an electronic voting group.
They did not vote electronically. They voted a paper ballot and submitted it. And for that one, I believe it was potentially a no-sig match. And so then they used the text to cure process to cure.
Okay, so it's the text to cure. I'm trying to think of is there some type of recommendation made and how to identify that group?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for the purpose of where we might go, one, I would argue that because this was not our fault, it was the voters' fault, and I would, I would vote it. I would allow it to be counted. But the second thing is that if our text to cure does not have a confirmation loop, where somebody actually looks at it and says, yeah, this works, you're fine. Because, I mean, that person went through the exercise and I presume thought that she had cured it. And then we looked at it later and said it wasn't, but we didn't go back to her and say, hey, the picture came through lousy, can you send it again or come by? And I mean, theoretically, we could call her right now and say, come on down with that or send us a better picture of your passport. Which I might even urge us to do if there's 4 or 5 of them, if it's a small number. But I mean, it's clearly our system's fault.
I get it.
So would the text to cure be the subgroup that we're concerned with in terms of follow-up?
No, there were 200 and something text to cures, and at this point, this is the only problem that we have encountered. So that's a pretty low percentage. I agree that I didn't know that there was a phone number attached. I agree that the staff could have called.
Yeah, I don't know that there is a phone number attached. I can give you a phone number, but.
So, first I want to acknowledge my staff in calling folks who needed their ballots cured. So there's a potential that, I don't know if they called this person, but there is a potential that they called these people that we are viewing now to ask again for a curing aspect. One of the things that I want to talk to Tech Secure about in the future elections, I don't know if we can do it for the runoff since it's so close, but for future elections, I would like to see if they can allow the voter to see the picture that they took. So things like this will not happen again. So I have a list of items that I would hope to make this pilot program better.
Yeah, and because that person is texting, you automatically have their phone number, right?
Not necessarily.
Well, I would believe that's somewhere in their system, at least tech secure system. If it's coming from a number and we ultimately needed to trace it,
It's not coming from a number. It's the very first thing is they get is a link to a website. And so then they're doing
But
it
do
on
they
the
get the
website,
link
and
via
then
text?
And then it's being submitted to a,
All right. Well, I guess all I'm saying is that in fairness to, on lots of these things online, I mean, for example, I bought an airline ticket recently and the system, after I pushed the last button, entered in all the credit card information and so forth, it said, sorry, we are down, you have to call the number. And yet American Express sent me a note saying I'd gotten it. So I called the number and I said, did I get it or not? No, you didn't get it. Oh, okay, well, American Express has already charged me for it. Are you gonna give me the ticket or not? And the point I'm getting at is you get these do loops where you have to go verify something. We're not verifying for the voter that their cure is worked. If I come down to the election office and say, here's my ID, the election official can say, yep, that's you, and put the ballot in the system. But I believe that this person thought they were doing it. And then admittedly, it's only, one vote out of 231 of these, but we're paying for a system. I'm sure we're paying more than $231. I don't know what you're paying for the system, but it ought to work better.
Again,
okay, I would just say, we've heard you. We've suggested some things that we want to do to make it better. And if it's all right, I think it would be time to move on.
I have a question, just on the process. So the person mailed this in, there's no signature in the database, and then they are given this letter with the red, the voter ID and the name written on, so this piece of paper goes to,
No, the red was written on by the staff after it was returned. So the voter
So it
ID
was-
number,
all the voter did was sign it?
all the voter did was say, yes, they voted in this election, and they provided this signature. And then instead of giving us their identifier, they just took a picture of themselves, and that does not cure ballots. They have to provide 2 identifiers or their photo ID.
Or their photo ID. So this person could have filled in one of these.
No, so we gave text to Kier our template, which is that letter that you're looking at. So when a voter gets that in the mail, they can choose to give us 2 identifiers, or they can give us a photo of their ID. So it's the exact same letter. What the voters,
So I'm going to get, if I did this, I'm going to get this page here? No.
no, you're getting you're clicking a link, and it says, did you vote in this election? And you check yes or no. And then the next thing says, sign here.
Right.
So then you get the signature, and then it says, take a photo of your ID. And so then you take a photo of your ID, and then you hit submit. And so text to Kier links up the, did you vote in this election, with the box that's filled in black yes.
Okay.
And then it links up the signature as the line.
And
then
the signature is done how? By
they
this
just
person?
write it on their phone.
Okay, so that's why it might not match exactly, because they're writing with a finger. or
Right, but
mouse.
Kiering is not getting a signature to suddenly match. The code requires that they provide either 2 identifiers or a photo. So
Okay,
when
and
it
the
comes-
text secure things asks for a
A
photo ID.
Correct.
Okay,
And this person took a photo of themselves and not. So we don't have 2 pieces of,
okay, so she just read photo, not photo ID.
But do you know the date that text, did they then get another text saying, hey, it didn't work right?
that's not, no.
No. So,
So their system, I don't think, could be able to tell a photo of a person from a photo of a
No, I understand their system, but, you know, at some point, a human needs to be there. Just realize this. Number one, I applaud you for going to text to cure, because one of our earlier questions 2 elections ago was, did we give people enough time to cure? By having text to cure, that helps in a mail-in election, especially when you're mailing cure notes back to people that get there after that. So, A, I applaud you for text to cure. B, if text to cure doesn't have a human sitting right there at the end of the assembly line to say, yep, that works, then you've got a problem with text to cure, because you've given the voter the impression that they did the right thing, and you didn't give them the feedback, and you don't discover it until it's too late. So that's the problem that we'll talk about, the policy thing. But in this particular case, we've got at least 2 ballots that probably, had the voter gotten another text, could probably have done that, and maybe there's more. And that's generally a question. How many of these are on the text to cure ones? Is this a separate category, or is this still the ID problem?
It's still the ID problem.
Okay, all right. So I separate the ID problem in my mind is, did you get an ID when you registered? Did you show an ID when you registered or when you vote the first time? Versus the ID problem, which says, because you can still fake an ID, you know, register to vote online and then show an ID in response to text to cure. Okay.
Is there a reason that there's no name up here, even though there's a name on the ballot and a voter ID?
It's what the information, it's populated from the information that is given to text to cure, from their questionnaire that they're filling out as they're going along the way.
But if they have a voter ID, would they have a name?
So there is no, and this is another thing that's on my to-do list, there is no option within the text to cure, the way it's currently set up, to my knowledge, for a voter to input their name. Just type it in. So that, along with a couple of other things, are on my to-do list to see if that can be fixed for the upcoming elections. So right now it cannot auto-populate the name, whereas it can auto-populate the signature and the voter ID, because the link, when you click it, it specifically asks for those 2 pieces.
Okay, I understand that, but all these other ones have a name that somebody in your office wrote.
Yes.
So why is there not a name here? Because there's, I mean, this is, the voter ID is only for one person. So.
It was just written in by our staff. All of the written names was written in by the staff. So
I was just curious
they're
why there
looking
was
at
no name up here.
because the staff didn't write it. They don't need the name.
Okay.
Once we get the voter ID, we can look it up in our system. So they just didn't write the name.
I have a question, I think, goes back to a comment made several minutes ago. Would we be out of line or unfair if we say, right now, should try to contact that person either by texting or phone or email or whatever we have, and if it can be cured by this afternoon, provided, this is okay with municipal law, I would be willing to accept counting that ballot if we can do it by this afternoon. I know this is very fast, but we're probably just talking about a small handful of voters.
Yeah, if there's ones where the voter has provided their phone number, I can certainly have the staff call and ask them to email us a better photo.
Okay, well, I'd be willing to, if they come back and cure, I'd be willing to count that ballot just to, okay.
So this one says other commission. And this is where he put a picture in as opposed to an ID. Do we have a copy of his ID on the state database where we can compare the picture with the ID on the state database?
No. When you provide the state, you're only providing your driver's license number.
Right, but don't we have a database that shows the signature and I mean, you can get a copy of the guy's state ID, right? And compare the pictures, theoretically.
There's not a photo of the person on the voter registration database.
How about the signature database that you get? So you pull the signatures off the state ID, but not the pictures. I mean, if I went to the police with this picture, they could match it using facial recognition with his ID.
Yeah, that's not something that the voter registration database has.
Okay. Well, and how many of these things where somebody sent a picture rather than an ID? It sounds to me like that's a problem with vote to cure too, or text to cure. I mean, it used to be humans would deal with this well. Now humans to machines aren't dealing with it well, and we took the human out of the picture, and we got to put the human back in.
Okay.
And Jamie, excuse me, Chair, would that be the election commission, that they're looking at these now, that there's I keep saying subgroup, is there a small enough group that you are the persons that look at it while policies are set in place, like Lauren was speaking, that for some particular group, there'd like to be a second check, or the commission has that ability to do that and say we just looked at these 5 and these 3 don't have the proper, we're rejecting because they don't have picture ID, and so they see that, and later this afternoon, or early afternoon, says, I want this one, I want a cure to go out. Tell us how much that would disrupt your process. Can that be, it sounds like that can be readily done. It's not going to.
Okay, I'm going to do 2 things. First, I'm going to bring the staff over, and the second thing is, Jessica, since you have your computer at this table, can you pull up the code and look at the cure and tell me what is required to cure? It's my recollection, and I could be wrong, that that we require 2 identifiers to cure or an ID.
Jamie, a question, please.
You want to come over?
These signatures don't match. Is that an issue at all?
Okay.
No, we don't look at the signatures on the cure letters, particularly because they've signed it. We recognize after this many years of doing this that people sign differently on electronic pads. They just get lazy. It's their credit card signature. The signatures on their ballots are often like their true authentic signature. And so what we're more concerned with is the identifiers that they've provided. If they have their identifiers, then that's what we're worried about. And then it makes the signature that's actually on the ballot a good signature to use in the future.
Question?
When we get done with this set, I would like to know how many are ID required and which ones were no sig matches from these. I failed to provide identifying information.
Okay.
Because it's a little different.
Okay. Sorry, what was the issue with this? I'm not sure.
So you have to provide one identifier. It says you must provide one identifier, which would be their social security, the last 4 of their social.
So this area was not for that.
This area is the personal representative that took it to the voter. And so my staff took it to this voter. This voter filled out this section, and it says you must provide one of your identifying information. Right, and so they gave the ID or their birth date, but not their address. It's just we don't have 2 separate sets for no sig match and ID required.
Okay.
And now we've lumped in cures that potentially didn't have a sig match and didn't do text to cure right, and I just need to know that.
Wait, the election representative brought this to the voter, but left
we
with
had-
an envelope without all the pieces filled out.
We took it to, it was the director or executive from API called and came in with a list of names
Okay.
and requested 20-something ballots. We went through the list of names and for the ones that we could determine, we pulled some together and that came to about 17 and we sent them to API, and when they came back, there was somebody's name had changed, there was just people refused to do things, and like they didn't know that this staff person was coming to get these ballots for them, I believe, and so.
So who
Yes, our staff.
transported it from the voter to back here?
Our staff. And
Okay,
so-
but does the staff look on these and make sure that they're
Yes.
all filled out properly?
Yes,
Okay,
but they refused to provide that identifying information.
okay, so they asked, but
Yes,
the person
Yeah.
just still did not
correct.
understand or listen.
And Jamie, just the API issue is your initiative, not a candidate's initiative, is that correct?
It's not my initiative. It's my understanding that it's the directors of API. This person comes in, or a person from API comes in annually and asks for.
But I think we had an issue a couple of elections ago where there appeared to be somebody who was collecting ballots at places like this, senior homes and so forth, maybe supporting a candidate, and I'm not sure what we did, but it's an issue nationally for sure.
So-
I just want to make sure that that kind of ballot collection is being properly done. That's all.
What we did to correct that, and it was the staffer from API went to the LUSAC library and requested many and took them to the hospital and then brought them back to the LUSAC. And that's not our intent. And so whenever anybody requests more than 2, they have to come to the election center and request. I send staff with the ballots and the staff works with the patients and brings them back so that it's not to be the in-between, to make sure that it's not that staff person.
Thank you. And is that in our handbook? Do you know?
I don't think so. We changed that in 22 when we had that issue come up, so I changed.
All right.
I
I'm
changed
just gonna-
the election center, the ABC manual to indicate that if anybody's requesting more than 2, that they have to come to the election center.
Jamie, you might want to take a minute or two to find where exactly this cure process is.
Okay.
Election code is fairly detailed, but I can't get down into, are you sure it's in code and not policy and procedure?
No, that's why I wanted to look at the code.
Yeah, so you might want to password conference if you want to track that down before the conversation continues.
I think I still want to call whoever we can call from who has provided, but I can look at that over the break.
Laptop on me.
Just a quick question. I may have missed something, but if a photo ID is one of the things that they can provide, what does the photo do when there's no photo to match?
We don't look at the photo. The photo ID provides date of birth, driver's license number,
Identifier information.
identifying information.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I'll try to find
Another quick question. The text secure process comes into play when in the cure process. Is that correct?
Yes. So every voter still gets a cure letter. So if there's an issue with their ballot, they'll receive a cure letter in the mail. In the letter itself, we'll have the prompt to text Anchorage to the text secure number. It'll also prompt the voter, if they don't know their voter ID, to call us so they can receive it if they want to cure using that option. But again, it's just an option that's also included in the cure letter that again goes out to every voter with an issue with their ballot.
Okay, so the text secure isn't a text
So
anywhere,
like
coming
like
to or from.
So, like Jamie said, the voter will text Anchorage to the number, and it's in the cure letter that you guys were looking at. And they'll be sent a link. They click the link, and then it goes to a website. So this is all website based.
Okay. So the person initiates the text to this thing,
Correct.
which shoots back a link.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Is there a unique link?
It's when you say unique.
So if I text from my number, say I need Treadwell and I need a cure because I got a letter from you guys, does it give me a link that already has populated my name in the form and all that?
No, it's a generic website that it takes you to, and what it will do is it will ask you, it'll show up, you'll click Hear My Ballot, it'll take you to another page where you can say, yes, I've voted my ballot, or no, I did not vote my ballot, and then after that, it will request your voter ID. Once you put your voter ID in, it will then ask you for a picture of your driver's license or whatever else we accept for ID purposes. But I think we can have that conversation more, and I can run you through the program after we get through these ballots.
Yeah, no, I get it. There's an opportunity possibly for fraud there where an observer could pick up, okay, here are the ones that are rejected, and you could conceivably do that for the voter. Just
By sending a photo of the voter's ID and knowing their voter ID number?
or at least most of the identifiers that we accept are publicly available one way or the other. The voter number, date of birth is often on somebody's Facebook and things like that. So anyway, no problem now, but
So this stack is 43, and these voters are registered outside of the MOA. There's one, the voter had received the ballot in the mail, and until February 29th was registered on February 29th, I apologize, before the deadline, had changed their voter registration and moved to Chignip. And so we believe that when we got the first set from the state, they were in the list, so they got a ballot. And then when we got the second set from the state, they had not yet updated, and so we couldn't yank it. And I think this is the first time this has ever happened. So then by the third one, we can't yank from the printer anymore. So there is 43.
I know we've given this to the commission in the past. Do you mind having copies to provide it to them?
No. Oh, because it has the description?
Yeah.
The description is in their manual.
Right, I'm sure they've seen it before. I'm sure they have. They have it. It's not in election code. Some other I don't think it's in code. I think it's
I think it's, we just don't have for it because it's legal.
It's in your, well, I mean, the procedure through which to do it is in your handbook. I don't think it's in code.
I argued over this whole hearing process with my judge because we had an opportunity to make the state do it, but he didn't want to. So
Right? The state doesn't have that process. We do a lot that's we're not required to.
yeah.
These are your ID requirements.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm sorry, James just making some copies.
These are no
Different
signatures, and then we have
So
three
you guys
that
have
have
it in front of
contact
you.
information, 2 phone numbers, and an email.
Okay, so no ID. These are no sigs.
Those are all no signatures.
Question, not quite understanding
She didn't provide
something here.
Okay.
So these
um,
Anchorage
two phone numbers and an
addresses,
email.
does this change the voter registration to Anchorage? But it was changed too late past the deadline. What's that?
So the floppies are provided to the state. It's a 2-part thing, and we rip the top off and give that to the state. So the date that they sign is the date that the state will change that voter registration, is the effective date of changing that voter registration. So they had to be registered in the city or in Anchorage as of
March 28th?
March 2nd in order to, I can't remember if it's March 1st or 2nd, in order to vote in the municipality. So on the right-hand side, as of whatever date they were registered in whatever city I wrote down.
This is 30 days before the election. Correct? Okay, so they voted a question ballot because they were hoping to vote with their new address, but they
They
missed the
voted a
deadline.
question ballot because they didn't get a ballot. And so they came in and they voted, they wanted to vote. And so when they pulled them up in the database, they couldn't find them.
Okay.
And because they weren't registered as of the deadline in the municipality of Anchorage.
Okay, so when they fill this out at the election center, nobody's able to look them up saying, sorry, you're not voted, you're not registered.
No, we have our own separate database. And so when they're not in the database, the workers are instructed to vote, to send them to get a question ballot. It's similar to going into a polling place and the name not being on the register and going to vote a question ballot. So then once we get it back here, then we look it up in Brems to figure out why they weren't in our database.
And then all these people are sent a cure letter saying you changed your registration too late, so your vote didn't count.
They're not sent a cure letter, but after the election, within 30 days, they will be sent a letter that explains that their
Vote
vote
didn't
did
count
not count because they were not registered in the municipality of Anchorage.
by the deadline.
Are they registered now for the, are they registered now for the runoff?
Yeah, we took them over to the state last week so that they could be updated prior to the deadline for the runoff.
Okay, and does the letter say that?
The letter will be going out after the runoff.
So
We
they
have
don't.
30 days
So
from,
these people don't know their vote didn't count. They're gonna get a ballot in the mail this time. But they won't know that they
is it
didn't.
30 days from certification that we have to send the letters, or is it 30 days from election day? We'll get back to you on that.
So, okay. Jamie, I've got a question on,
Pause.
We need a minute.
Need a minute. Thank you.
Who's on the phone? Okay. Yeah, he needs to be over by the front.
I don't know. What is your name? Gonna ask like real fast.
He just needs to be out of the secure area, so he needs to go to the.
Because he can't.
We can't have phones. Policy that we have in place. We can't have phones over here.
I apologize. Can you ask your question again?
I have a new question, but on that one, my question was, okay, we're rejecting their vote because they didn't change the register of time, but they did change the register of time for the runoff. And if we send them a letter that says we rejected your vote because you didn't register in time, do we at least make it clear to them that they can vote the runoff, because we don't want to chill
They're on computers. I work
there.
So what I need to look at is whether the letter is required to be sent 30 days after election day or 30 days after certification. If it's 30 days after certification, they're going to have already gotten the ballot at their new address. If it's 30 days after election day, I can change the letter to indicate that they will be receiving a letter for the runoff, or a ballot for the runoff at their newly, I can change the letter to explain it correctly.
Harassing members of the public.
I'm not harassing them.
Okay, so, all right, that's one issue, but I just wanted to know, because the sequence, because it can be confusing, if you get something saying, we didn't have your vote, oh, well, then I'm not gonna vote this time, oh, that type of thing. I just want to make sure the letter's clear. On this one, it's clear this woman did something on the 29th of February, this
Changed her registration to Chignick.
right, but she also at the same time changed her address from Eagle River to Chudiak on the same date. And so I'm just wondering if there was a confusion here, because it looks like she did two things. All right. Her address was Eagle River until, which she did in June of 2023. On the same date in 2024, on 2/29, she changed it to Chudiak and changed it to Chignick. And I guess, is it possible that she came in and said, I want to vote in the right, say, assembly district for this election, but then I'm going to move out to Chignick come fishing season or something. It just looks like she did two actions at the same time.
So on June 1, 2023, she was registered to vote at Chudiak. On
Code or
Liz.
a charter.
I'm not contradicting you. It looks like Eagle River, and then it looks like she changed it to Chudiak on 2/29.
So this tab is previous name and address. So the previous name and address was Chudiak, and on February 29th, she changed it to Chignick.
Right, but when did she change it from Eagle River to Chudiak?
Couldn't state law.
6/1.
Yeah, that's why I need this, because I
No
get
question.
convicted.
Thank you. That's all right. No, it's not a trust question, it's just kind of
Yeah, when I'm looking at the history,
What?
I don't know. There's a last contact, and sometimes the last contact can help, but the last contact is February 29th, so. What I see is on the February 29th, she changed her voter registration to Chignick, and I don't know what that Eagle River to yeah. But it was before February 29th.
Yeah, I would just recommend a more personalized letter type thing. And the form is confusing. And, you know, I could see somebody saying, hey, I want to vote this election, but I'm moving to Chignik after this. And it appears that when she moved from A River and Chudiak, which may or may not be the same district, there's, at least legislatively, there's a line there. If she made the change, if she made 2 address changes at once, which is conceivable, I mean, you know, people don't like to have to come twice, if you know what I mean. We disenfranchised her by mistake. We don't know that.
Can you just count and make sure there's still 43?
These people have been contacted.
Okay. These folks registered too late, and there are 24 of them. This is when the voter registered or updated their registration after the 30-day cutoff before the election.
Did any of them update their address within the boundaries of Anchorage?
Yep.
So in a citywide vote, they can't vote for mayor because they changed their address from downtown to midtown?
No, I apologize, I didn't understand your question. They were previously registered, they were previously not registered at all. They registered for the first time on dates, and it's 3/12, 3/10, 3/14. This is the very first time that they've registered. So they registered too late.
Got it.
But they will be eligible for the election.
And these differ from the previous categories because these were not registered anywhere versus the previous category was registered somewhere but changed.
Outside of that home.
And these were not registered at all.
Correct.
Yeah, sure. I don't want those yet.
You want that? He was, and then he got trouble for Dan Sullivan. Somebody's working in the Senate office. I think so, but I think he felt like it did.
Can I ask one other question about voter registration? And I'm not sure we closed this whole when I was lieutenant governor, but lots of people can register voters. You and I can take a stack of applications and go, to a shopping mall and say, hey, are you registered? Do you have it? Then when we turn in the things, if we turn them in after the date, it's kind of our fault as the registered volunteer as opposed to the voter. Do we have any evidence that these were, before an election official, and obviously I'm not, I'm not suggesting conspiracy, but that is kind of a hole. People sometimes register, think they've registered in time, somebody doesn't turn in the card in time.
So I will tell you that we do not have access to be able to see the voter registration form at all. There is a line at the very bottom of a voter registration form where a registrar, if they're registered as a registrar, should be signing and putting their identifying information and the date that they received it, and that is what the state will honor. But again, even if I was able to see the form, I would not be able to see that. It would be blank, so it would be the same answer to me as it was for the state.
So you're relying on the impeccable efficiency of the state. Got it.
Title 15 requires us to.
No. Which is why, as a state official, I often invited city clerks in to talk to us to make sure that we were following your concerns as well.
If I was queen for a day.
So when somebody registers to vote in the form or online or what have you, I assume it says that in order to vote in the upcoming election, you have to do it within 30 or outside of a 30-day window.
I don't know what their form says. I haven't gone through the process because I'm registered to vote. But we do a lot of outreach, right? I mean, this past Friday, we sent out press releases. It was in the newspaper and on TV that Sunday is the deadline to register to vote for the upcoming municipal election. So,
but don't they have to fill out some form? Is it on the form? Because not everybody watches TV or listens to the news.
So it's one generic form for the entire state.
Right.
And I don't know
Does it mention that it's 30?
I don't know what their form says. I haven't looked at their form.
No. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of these people, I mean, they registered on a date and then they come in to vote thinking that they're already registered. It's like, well, I registered 2 weeks ago. I'm now voting, so my vote's going to count in their mind.
When they vote a question ballot at the vote center, they're handed a form that explains to them that their ballot is going to be reviewed and may or may not count. So that is where they're getting information that it may or may not count, but the online forms, I don't know what, those are controlled by the state. I can look at them and make a suggestion to the state.
Okay, at the vote center, is anyone told that there's a 30-day window? I guess that's what I'm wondering. If not everybody may know that they have to do this 30 days in advance. So when they turn in this question ballot, are they given a statement that says, it is a question ballot, it may or may not count, but one of the things that won't count is if you register within 30 days.
Sure. So we give them a static database that was received as of the deadline. And they have no idea why the voter isn't in the voter registration, why the voter is not in their database. We have 3 or 4 different codes here for why we have question ballots. And so they are handed a form that explains that their ballot is being questioned and will undergo further review and may or may not be counted. So I don't know that it goes into the actual specifics of these are the 4 reasons why, because there could be many reasons why.
All right, but when their vote is rejected officially by us, they will be sent some sort of letter telling them that they registered too late.
Yes, and the top of that was given to the state, which updates their voter registration.
Okay, thank you.
So just FYI, Dustin's calling the police.
Will you please make sure that that is still 24?
So these are ballots that were received too late. It was received after 8 p.m. on election day by email, fax, one of the vote centers, or one of the secure drop boxes. And so 2 of them were handed to Dropbox workers after 8 p.m. and the time that they are indicated is on here, and then 2 of them were at a vote center.
And in those cases, if there's somebody at the drop box, anybody in line at 8 o'clock is accepted.
That's correct.
Yeah,
They have
so-
systems in place to last car in line or last person in line at 8 p.m. and then anyone who gets
So,
in line after
yeah,
that.
so this may be somebody who came 5 minutes after that, and the worker was just collecting ballots and doing whatever they're doing, processing the other people.
Correct.
Okay.
This was 2 people, same last name, 4 minutes late. They could have gone to the Anchorage Airport Post Office and gotten their ballot counted.
They were provided a form that gave them that option.
This is 801. So was it just stuck in a question ballot because it was so close?
No, they had their system in place just like the state does, where a human gets in line at 8 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock, we're closed, and the human gets in line, and anybody that gets in line after that is after 8 p.m.
Well, a minute late. Went ahead. Does a human who gets in line just tell the person, the 801 person, it's like, oh, you could go take your ballot to the airport?
They don't have a ballot when they're coming to the vote center to take to the airport. They're coming to the vote center often because they didn't get a ballot in the mail for whatever reason.
But there's ballots in there.
If somebody handed them a ballot and it took them till after 8:01 to fill it out because it's a long, complicated ballot,
No, they arrived at 8:01.
how did they get a ballot?
There's a
They
ballot.
insisted, and the vote center issued the ballot and put it in a question, and they made them do the question envelope. They arrived at 8:01, and then they sat down and started the voting process.
Are you sure about that? Because why would you give them a ballot if it's after 8:01? Because if somebody would say, well, you can vote a question ballot and let us
We
kick
don't deny
it.
people's right to vote.
Well, we are. I mean, no, Jane, I was just trying to figure out the consequence. I get there at 8:01. The election official wrote on that, we already announced we're closed. Why would they give a person a ballot
If
at
the voter's
8:01?
gonna insist, they're gonna do it to prevent,
Violence or
yes,
a big fight or fuss or whatever.
right. That's what their instructions say, is to let them vote a question ballot if they arrive at 8:01.
But can't they still vote at the airport?
No.
Not if they don't have a ballot.
No, if they got the ballot in the mail, they could go get it postmarked before midnight.
Since we have so many field workers, is the time on their clocks, is that coordinated before they go out in the field so we know we're talking about the same time?
So as for the drop boxes, there's 3 of them, 2 to 3 that go per vehicle, and they're working together, and they all go to a drop box. I mean, one team goes to each drop box, so that, yes, at 8 o'clock, they are standing out there. They've been standing out there for 5 minutes, and at 8:01, if there is a line, they determine where, or at 8 o'clock, they determine where the end of the line is, and they either put a sticky on the windshield or they stand in line if there's enough of them.
Yeah.
And back to your question on the ones in the ABC, it was not only the entire ABC, but the runners had showed up to take non-confidential information, and they also witnessed these people walk in after 8 o'clock.
And they have the ballot postmarked after Election Day.
These ones are no postmark. That's no postmark.
Okay.
So this next set is no postmark received after Election Day. It's to be used if the ballot was received after Election Day. It's been determined that there is no postmark on the ballot envelope, and the USPS could not verify receipt of the envelope on or before Election Day. And there are 16 of these.
These were received in the mail with no postmark?
Right.
So they were processed by the post office and sent to you, but they missed.
Correct. It's why we ask people to have their ballots hand canceled. We've been hounding that for 2 years now on everywhere. In the media, on our notices, everywhere that we're able to, we ask them to hand cancel, ask the post office to hand cancel them. 8.
She's on your mind, so.
It's just that this is a secure area where we have confidential information.
Yeah, that's like Social Security.
Where did these go?
They were in front here.
Okay. Can you put that in?
These are the ballots that were postmarked after election. These are the ballots that were postmarked after election day. This code is used when it's been determined that the ballot is postmarked after election day. So it's postmarked and received after election day. There are 269. And so you can skim through them, you can look at all of them, whatever you guys want to do. Okay.
Yeah, so do you, a lot of times if you drop something in a mailbox, it doesn't seem like the post office marks it always that day, and it's the same hand cancellation issue. But for example, you can look at a mailbox and says it's a 5:30 pickup in Fairbanks, and they may not even postmark it until it gets to Anchorage. Yeah, so, yeah, if it's April 8th, that's way past the due. Yeah, I mean, I'm bringing this up for policy purposes, not for any sort of, we didn't run it right, you ran it by the policy.
Right. My understanding, it's the same as state law with absentee by mail, they have to be postmarked by election day. Again, we do all with the media, with our public notices, we really encourage people, ask them to get their ballots hand canceled when they're close to election day.
So that's the 269.
Correct. It was 264 this morning. We received 5 when they went and got the mail.
It's one of my lives.
Called the cops on me because I told him he couldn't have a phone because of confidential information. But now he's gone. So he's out there with the cops.
I'm making my way there.
Well, first election.
That extra year, I always just take credit. Watch them do it, look at it.
Well, I mean, you know, one of these was DC.
Just mine.
Yeah.
All those other two songs had the same abilities. Yeah, just
I feel sure that's why they took him outside. Because it's not permitting. Probably. Laura Maxwell's gonna be here at 11. You're on this one.
Where's X? Right.
So our next set of rejects is the voter is not registered. These voters voted a question ballot in the vote centers, and when we looked them up in the voter registration database, they were not at all registered to vote.
Jamie, does not at all mean that they weren't scrubbed from a previous list.
Correct.
Because we have had some people who were, I'm remembering the last election, we had some people who
Yeah, when they're
stayed scrubbed from the list.
scrubbed, their voter number is still in the voter registration database, and we couldn't find a voter number
for any of them.
For any of them? Okay, one of them was purged.
When was that person purged?
I don't know the answer to that right now. We can, they were purged on February 28th, 2023. There are 16. And again, with the yellow envelopes, they have, the tops were sent to the state and they'll be registered or re-registered.
How do these differ from T, voter registered too late?
When they're registered too late, we can see them in Brems, and their registration date was after the cutoff. These people we could not find in Brems at all.
Oh, okay, so that's why there was an earlier date up here and okay. These guys registered on whenever they brought their ballot in. Okay.
Okay, can I think about those now? These are.
So some of these have been contacted. I need Liz over here because they've been mixed. But I think these three have been contacted just this morning after we had the conversation.
Okay.
So I need to see if they've actually been cured.
Okay, and then what's with those?
Again, they've been mixed, so I need to talk to Liz. But she's currently exposed.
Will you count those?
48 less. Nope, 16.
Yeah.
Okay, our next set here is the voter failed to sign the ballot return envelope. It's used if the voter did not sign the ballot return envelope at all. If you see a phone number in here, the voter was called or emailed if they're provided an email, and they also received a cure letter. And there are 41.
Does that mean that they were cured or weren't cured?
They're not cured. They've all received a cured letter. And if they provided a phone number or email on their envelope, we called them and emailed them to try to get them.
But they weren't cured.
They're not cured.
So, Jamie, this is a bigger question. There's, the recommendation here from staff is that we reject close to 800 ballots. The state purge rules kind of say you're purged if you don't vote in a certain number of elections. If we disqualify these votes, does it give them points toward being purged?
They're counted as having voted.
They are counted as having voted even though their vote didn't count.
Right.
Interesting.
Question is how does this happen? There's no name on it? Was this mailed to somebody without a name over here? Or did they just pick up a ballot and send it in?
On this label, it says the voter returned the ballot in their outer envelope. So the outer envelope that was mailed to them. So it was returned to a drop box in that envelope. And so we could tell that it was
So you knew who it was?
this person. And so then this person got a cure letter and said, come sign your ballot.
So somebody at the elections office just grabbed a blank envelope and stuck a sticker.
Yeah, just to give us the
Here's
information.
another where.
How did this ballot get into the world with no name on it?
So again, the voter returned the ballot in the outer envelope, and the outer envelope has the voter's name on it. And so then we created these labels to get them into our system so that they could get a cure letter and ask them to send us their signature so we can count their ballots.
And Josh Barrow turned in his ID.
When your ballot package is mailed to you, it has your name and address on it.
Right.
And so they didn't put them in
And
these
then
envelopes,
these are
they
just
stuck them in the
stuff.
outside envelope
Yeah,
and stuck them in the drop
ID
boxes.
required. She just
Okay.
didn't
So we
fill out
knew their
her
name
identification.
because that name was printed on them, but they didn't sign that outer envelope.
Great, thank you.
So we put them in envelopes and printed their label so that we could send them a cure letter.
So, in this first stack that I've got, I've held back 5 ballots that were where a witness did sign, but the voter did not sign. And having, you know, I remember when my wife was near death, she could barely make an X. She made the X, but I signed it for her. I may have helped her make the X in one of the, you know, the primary or the general. But anyway, I guess what I'm looking at here is these are ones where it could have been a student away at college and the parents were voting for them or something else like that. And they're not supposed to do that, you know, or if the voter didn't sign. And I guess I would suggest that in a rejection letter, or, you know, here's why your vote didn't do it, even though the witness signed, even though Emily Mullins, in this case, signed for Greg Eschenmoor, Greg, you have to sign or else it doesn't work. And just make it real clear, you can't have your mom post your ballot for you.
Yeah, all of our letters, we keep them all separated like this, and all of the different codes have a different form letter that go with it.
Yeah, but there's two different circumstances here.
okay.
There's
One
They
just
took the
like
trouble
one.
to get a witness.
yeah, I mean,
but
here's another one where several where the witness is, where they thought they were doing it right by witnessing it, and maybe the witness need to make it clear that the witness doesn't. I mean, weirdly enough, all these people could be guilty of trying to vote somebody else's ballot for them, but just by identifying themselves as a witness and kind of indicating that the voter's not there. But anyway, there's 4, 8, there's 11 of them, so that's under Z.
Could you explain again your concern there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who appear to fill out their ballot, didn't sign it, sent it in, and you have no idea who did, okay? On the other hand, there's a number where a witness signed, but the voter themselves didn't sign, and that could be for many different reasons. It could be an incapacitated voter, and they thought they were doing the right thing. It could be somebody calling in from college and saying, "Mom," I was calling my son in Okinawa on election day, and he said, "Nah, they've just made it too hard for me to vote. I'm not going to vote," which is a typical Marine answer to Dad. To which my answer would be, if you could blow it up, would you blow it up? So anyway, and in my wife's case, if your FedEx didn't get there in time with the ballot that we forwarded to you, you've got to call in on that. But I wasn't gonna, I already had gotten rid of the ballot. But there's when you have mail-in ballot, there's a lot of incentive for somebody to sign for it, which is why we have the signature requirement. I guess I wonder in this case, I think a letter explaining in this category that says some people signed for a witness, but the voter didn't sign, and that was true in your case, or check that box and just let them know that somebody was voting their ballot.
Yeah, so the form letter that we send them would just be slightly updated to explain
Right.
it's a witness, but you still have to sign.
Yeah.
Or make an X.
So you are addressing that in a form letter?
We haven't been, but we will.
Will you count that there's 41?
You can also have the police contact them. So.
Our next set is no sig match on the ballot return envelope, and it's used if the voter's signature on the ballot return envelope does not match a signature that's provided to us by the state of Alaska voter registration database. There are 623 of those. They're on the bottom shelf over there. So our 2 trained, there's 5 of them, but 2 trained election officials who are trained by forensic document examiners did not believe that these signatures matched. And then William and I went back through all of the no sig matches and audited and removed several, curing them after the fact. And then, so we're left with 623. And they're right there to look at if you want me to pull them over here, or if you're.
So can you give us a status of when cure texts were sent and whether or not they could have cured by text?
All of these, we are required to send in no sig match letters within 3 days. And so within 3 days of receiving the ballot, they were sent a cure letter, and all of our cure letters provided the option to cure by text, as well as just sending the letter back or bringing the letter to us.
It's just depressing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we also want to highlight that Charlie and Barbara did call through.
Oh yeah, and William just reminded me that if there are phone numbers or emails, they were called or emailed as well to encourage to bring them their cure letter. And so what I do want to say is through your suggestion to audit them annually, our cure has, our no sig match has gone from 1,052 in 2021 down to 623 last year, and we're at 623 again this year.
Any idea what percentage that is in both cases?
I didn't think through that. I didn't do that math yet.
You know, logic tells us that many of these are probably legitimate signatures. That, on the other hand, logic also can tell us that many of these may have been forged by somebody who was voting for them at home. Like this one, there was a note that said will send, so there was a phone number. So did you text them, a text to cure thing?
They called them last Thursday, and they spoke to the voter, and the voter clearly said will send, and we haven't received it as of yet. They were reminded of the deadline of 10:30 today.
Thank you.
And when a voter comes in, and or they may come in, but anyway, they cure by providing a signature, an ID, or, you know, so you verify that it's that person. Does that new signature then go into the database, so the next time they vote, there will be something to match against?
Yeah. It also helps with voters who have had a sudden event that maybe have changed their handwriting. You know, we can see an aging person aging over time, getting just shaky or whatever, but if there's been a sudden event, when they cure and their signature is new, or when you're 16 and you sign with little hearts above your eyes, then you change because you've grown up and you don't put hearts above your eyes anymore. The new signatures do get put into the system.
I'm disturbed that they're not responding to the cure letters and fixing this. They're going to the trouble of voting and not doing something to fix it. Average, how much time do they have to cure?
Until today at 10:30.
But when they're received to that, it's frustrating.
I think that there's many reasons. I think that some of them were, as Meade said, voted by someone else in the home and the signature was forged. There's some that maybe see the election results and decide that their vote's not going to count. I think that people, that's why we went to text to cure, is to try to make it more accessible. And so yes, it is disappointing. I think that, you know, we've sent them a letter within 3 days of receiving their ballot. We've called phone numbers, we've emailed them if we've tried to do the text to hear. We've audited the signatures to make sure that we agree with the 2 trained signature verifiers to,
Did you take a look at this one? I mean, this is clearly somebody aging out.
we did, yeah.
You think the Austins are faking it? Or we just don't have a... The weird thing about this system, you know, I mean, we're having the same discussion on ranked choice voting, which is who does it disenfranchise? And this appears to disenfranchise the older folks, at least in this regard. I mean, I'm watching 2 family members lose their handwriting capability, period. And both proud enough to not want to, you know, go tell the government that they can't sign their name as well, and so forth. It's sometimes when I'm signing on a screen, I say that's me too. But I have friends with Parkinson's disease, and having a shaky signature is huge. When you prepare this report, does it, you know, it's interesting, on the last section where we had people who have not registered to vote before, there were a couple of people who were born in 1942, appeared to be a couple, so they may have moved to the state, live with their kids or something like that. On the other hand, here it'd be very interesting to note, you know, kind of the age level here. I'm just concerned about a policy that maybe discriminates against the aged, you know, and where the effect is to discriminate against the aged. And I don't know what to do, because obviously you want, I mean, the problem is, again, when you could go into a polling booth and Mrs. McGillicuddy is one of your election workers and has known Mr. Jones forever, there's not a question, you know, even if his signature looks goofy, you know, and here you don't. And 600 people, you know, I'd imagine some percentage of them, they were voted by somebody else, thinking, oh, it's a mail-in election, who cares? But a lot of them appear to be, you know, aged. So it'd be interesting to at least run it against birth date.
Okay.
And I don't know how to fix it, but, you know, and we do provide a polling place for people to come and vote in person in all cases. So.
Does that letter, after the cure letter goes out, does it say anything about if you need help, you can call such and such number? Or I'm thinking the elderly who can't get to the polling station. You might want to listen to this. So it's an elderly person, their signature is deteriorating, and maybe they don't use computers that well, you know, the text to cure business. But on that form letter, is there just a generic number? If you need help, you can call the election center? Because you could send out people if you needed to. I mean, you've done that in the past.
Yes.
So there is a generic if you need help.
And there is, yes, and there's special needs as well. So if they truly can't leave, and then they can go to any vote center or come here and request a special needs ballot. So they do have many options. The cure letters, in addition to just being mailed 3 days after, it's stamped with a red urgent, and to try to differentiate this piece of mail from any other mail that you're getting. These are, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I was just disturbed by this. This changes elections, this number. Changes races, changes everything. And it's just a symptom of doing everything mail-in, not being able to check at the poll location.
I can't provide an answer to that.
Yeah.
This is what the Assembly's adopted. I am administering it. So the next section is no reference signature. There are 2 of these, and there is no reference signature in the state of Alaska voter registration. We contact the Division of Elections, and occasionally they have one that they can email us, and we are able to cure them that way. They're also mailed a cure letter, which provides all the options for curing. And these 2 were also both called last week and encouraged to send their cures in.
So again, in the process of the cure, and again, this is something where theoretically, it's not the voters' problem that the government isn't keeping their signature, but but we're disenfranchising them anyway. And I'm not, we've talked about this before, and the number here is a lot less. I believe it's less than it was last time. I'm not sure what it was. In one of these cases, this is an envelope that was has no name on it, so it had been done at a voting center. The voting center.
It was not done in a voting center. It was a replacement ballot. And so they called in and gave one identifier to get the.
Okay.
And then
well,
they did not have.
All right. So my first question is, how many registered people eligible to vote in this election were people that you don't have a reference signature for? Any idea?
I don't have that number. It's very few. And then these are the only 2 that are remaining after what we were able to cure by getting from the state or getting them to cure it.
Yeah. I would just say anything we can do to reduce that number further, and it sounds to me like you've done a lot on that.
So we have created our
this-
own database that we
Yeah.
keep our own signatures year after year.
Yeah.
And so that to try to eliminate the numbers that something happens at the state, PFD, you don't provide signatures anymore. You can register online, and DMV signatures occasionally aren't great. And so we are keeping our own database as well, which are signatures that we've received from the state of Alaska over the years. Our signatures go back to the state of Alaska, and so we are able to.
So I guess just in this case, this envelope, this person did have interaction. He had the will send. Okay. This one is one where you had a witness, and it looks to me, not necessarily, but it's obviously the same pen. It's not this. It's probably not the same signer. But do we ever contact the witness as well? Or should we put a phone number for a witness on the envelope?
Yeah, well, there isn't a place on the envelope, so they probably don't think to,
Yeah, no, I mean, should we put a place on the envelope?
we can look into that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the weird things about the witness situation is that, you know, there's no real identifier for a witness, so it could be the postmaster in Bergen, Germany, you know, Norway or something like that. But on the other hand, if there's a way to contact the witness, sometimes that might help also if there's a no answer or whatever. And again, we have right now not a close election. 1,000 votes might have changed who's in the lead in the mayor's race and might have changed one or two things, but I'm just worried about precedent in our, if you had a close election. And also believe that things ought to be accurate because people make decisions on what the numbers were regardless of who won and lost.
This next set of ballots is ballot voted by someone other than the voter. It's been determined that the ballot was voted by someone other than the voter. And so there's some additional information with most of these. Some of them were text secures where they said that no, they hadn't voted in this election. There's one that had been purged, a couple that voted on behalf or signed on behalf of, which is.
We'll take invitation to get a visit from the gendarmes.
This one just didn't have the identifiers.
That one's text secure, and they said no, they hadn't voted in this election.
Looks like the same signature.
Yes. No, it's very precious.
Just clarifying the process on the, no, I did not return my voted ballot. This was received, the signature didn't match, and so they were given an option to cure somehow. And they did the text secure, signed it saying, no, I didn't return a ballot. So then you say, oh, okay, you didn't return a ballot, and somebody else voted for you. Okay.
So On this one, signature didn't match, so we sent text to Cure, and this is the signature you got back?
The box on the right indicates that they did not vote in this election.
No, it doesn't really say that. It says, no, I did not return my voted ballot. But what's weird about it is if this was done online, I mean, if this was a signature, it really does look like the same signature. It'd be worth calling this person up and saying, because the confusion here is that you check that box, does that mean now or later? You know, or does that mean now or before?
Is there a phone number on the ballot?
Probably not, no. I mean, the weird part about it is this, the way we phrased the question, yes, I returned my voted ballot, could be, I'm not doing, I could check no on this because I'm not doing it, I'm doing the thing online or something. They may not understand that I voted, you know, it might be to say that the ballot you got was not for me, okay? Or versus I returned it, because it doesn't really say when I returned it, if you know what I'm saying, even though we got that just by the way the question is. I mean, you know, realize that the pioneering that we're doing here is a mass election on you know, by mail, and the way this was phrased could be confusing about the time. That's all I'm saying. Especially because the signatures look very, very close. The J is very close. The M is very close, especially if you're doing something on a screen. You know, I mean, it's pretty clear that the voter, that the signature is a match to me. And I haven't taken your course, but I think the question is confusing.
Did you write that down?
I'm working on that. I do. Because I know this question. Yeah, no, I understand.
So in this case, the guardian, the better thing to do would be the X, and then this person do the witness.
Correct.
All right, so we move categories, or these are still in the original 6?
Yeah, so it's not the voter that signed, it says it was signed, the voter, the line was signed by a guardian. The affidavit, which is under the flap, says this ballot was voted by me, and so it was voted by the guardian on behalf of the voter, and that's not permitted under the law.
So in this case, is that a 1 or a 4? Purge 227-21? 24. So this woman who comes from a very famous Western Alaska family was purged 3 weeks before the election.
Which means that they hadn't voted in any election for 4 years, and the state's been trying to get a hold of her for 4 more years. And was purged on February of 2024, yes.
But we had already mailed out ballots?
You'll notice that the ballot was sent to someone else.
Right.
And
Okay, reject. Yeah, I see that. Thanks. These two I'm more worried about because if the power of attorney signs on the wrong line, we reject it. Had the person signed down here rather than up there, would we have accepted it?
if the voter had marked it, if the voter was actually voted the ballot and had marked an X because they can't sign, then, and the guardian witnessed it, then yes, we would have been able to count it.
I'm wondering if these should be in the category number 9 rather than category number 3. These two.
The POA one,
Yeah.
that's where they initially were, and I pulled it into this one because it didn't actually say power of attorney, it just says guardian. So I was getting a little nitpicky, I guess.
Did you contact both of these folks for cure?
Phone number, I will.
No, we did not. If it looks like it's been voted by somebody other than the voter, they put it into, and again, they had put it in the power of attorney bucket, so they had determined that it was a power of attorney, and I changed it to voted by somebody other than voter yesterday because I read guardian instead of power of attorney.
What's this?
That's just shows the instructions.
What's this? Gotcha. Yeah, when is our next 12th of May?
These next three are ballot voted by power of attorney. And I just would draw your attention to the yellow line right above it that says power of attorney is not acceptable. And that is, it's in federal law, state law, and municipal law. So it's not just municipality.
But again, they would have counted if it was an X and the POA signed the witness.
Correct.
Make sure that our rejection letters explain that.
This one has an X.
You're right, it does.
So I think this one should be valid, and the POA probably just signed next to it.
Sure.
People just don't read, but.
Will you order us to count that in the meeting? Please just order us to count it during the meeting so that it's on the record.
Meeting.
Well, I know him. He's actually one of the best heart surgeons in town.
note here.
I've got it.
This last set of ballots is, there's 8 of them, and they were previous election ballot envelope. And so we do open them to make sure. This is it's a previous election ballot received. The voter voted and returned a previous election ballot. And so we've opened them to ensure that they didn't just have the envelope laying around the house and return it in the wrong envelope. They are all the 2023 ballots. And I was also always curious if they had just been hanging out in the mail for a year and suddenly were found and brought to us, but they were all postmarked in April of 24.
I asked a question last time this came up on the previous clerk. Like my head off. Is any of them from a particular district?
Excuse me, there seems to be a camera. I take note there's a camera. Is that appropriate? We need to call the police?
Mr. Darden, the press is allowed to use cameras in the election center in order to provide transparency to the public, and we continually ask them to ensure that they don't capture anything confidential and displayed in a way that can be seen on television.
So for the record, you're arbitrarily censoring who the press is, as to censoring myself from having a telephone or camera? Okay.
You're a member of the public according to your lanyard.
On the record, I'm a member of the press, a member of the public, and you are arbitrarily censoring the press in a public meeting. Just understand that's a criminal violation and civil.
Can I see that badge?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are done reviewing all of the ballots. The team has had cure letters that they've received as of 10:30, and they are working on curing those at this point. And so we are going to break now until 11:30, which looks like about 20 minutes, when we'll reconvene into the meeting, so you can ask for public comment or you can adjourn.